Hello, this is Pastor George, and as you can probably tell, beautiful day. So I thought that I would come out today and do this devotion on the church property. I'm glad that you have joined me. I'm going to be taking the devotion today from Romans chapter 5 and from verses 3 and 4. Here's what it says. And not only that, but we also rejoice in our afflictions because we know that affliction produces endurance. And endurance produces proven character. And proven character produces hope. One of my all-time favorite books is a book by Alfred Lansing entitled Endurance. It is the story of Ernest Shackleton's voyage to the South Pole, to Antarctica. They left from England in August of 1914 on a ship appropriately named the Endurance. After about a 5-month voyage, they arrived in the South Pole, but the Endurance became trapped in the ice. And as the ship began to freeze, it began to crush the hull of the vessel until it became obvious they were going to have to abandon ship. So they took 2 lifeboats off of the Endurance and all of the supplies that they could carry. They put those in the lifeboats and they literally dragged those lifeboats for months across the ice until they came to the shore of Elephant Island and set up a base camp, a place where they could view the ocean and they could see if there were any rescue ships coming or perhaps some whaling vessels that would happen by, and they could signal them in hopes of being rescued. But after months of looking and waiting, nothing happened. No one came. So they came up with a desperate plan that they would get some men and they would man those 2 lifeboats and they would sail across Drake Passage to South Georgia Island. And Drake Passage is probably one of the most treacherous waterways on the entire planet. But they managed to do that. And then after they finally made landfall, after about a month of sailing, they walked across land until they came to a whaling village. And when they walked into that whaling village, Ernest Shackleton and 2 other men who were with him, the men in the whaling village saw them and thought they were seeing a ghost, because you see, Ernest Shackleton had disappeared and had been gone for almost 2 years. And he got a ship, took several tries, went back to Elephant Island, where he had left his men, and they rescued his men, and it took them until they finally went back to that whaling village. It was August the 30th, 1916, 2 full years. It was a test of endurance. Endurance is a word in the Bible. The Greek word is the word hupomene. And it's made up of 2 Greek words, hupo meaning under, and mene or meno, which means to bear or to abide or to hold up. So you put those 2 words together and it means to hold up under something. When I see that word, I always think of the Olympic weightlifters in the snatch and jerk competition, clean and jerk competition. You see them and they'll bend down and they'll grab the bar from a squatted position. They'll throw it up over their heads, and then they'll stand up, and you'll watch them as they're standing there and they're holding that weight sometimes over 500 pounds. The record is like 582 pounds. And you can see the muscles in their legs and their arms are just quivering underneath the strain, but they have to hold it up and remain motionless until the judges give the signal that it's a good lift, and then they're able to drop that weight, but they stand up hupomene underneath that strain. So God says that He produces that same quality in our life. That's one of the graces of the Holy Spirit, and it is something we certainly need right now, isn't it? Because we're having to stand up, we're having to endure. Back then, early days of the church, they had to endure persecution. But even today, we're enduring persecution. In fact, there are more Christians who are suffering and being killed for their faith today than at any other time in the history of the church. But as Christians today, we have to endure a lot of things, don't we? We have to endure this virus. We have to endure the things we're just having to contend with. We have to endure struggle. We have to endure Satan's attacks against us. We have to endure temptation. But the Bible tells us that God gives us this grace of endurance so we can bear up under these things. Now, why am I bringing this today? Because we have endured for 2 months now this coronavirus. I know a lot of us are just suffering from isolation fatigue. We're ready for this to be over with. We're ready to get back together. We're ready to worship together again. And I can tell you this, we need to endure. Listen, it always gets tougher just before things turn around. At the end of the test is always the toughest time. So I believe we're closer to the end than we've been before, and that's why things are just going to get harder. But this is when we need to persevere. This is when we just need to gut it out. We need to hang in there. And God has promised to give us this grace of endurance so that we can do that. So I hope this word has been encouraging to you today. And I just want you to know that I love you, and I look forward to very soon that we will be able to worship in person again. Hope you have a great day. Stay safe.